Welcome back to the Swider Show, episode 28. This week was a big week for the show. Huge week for the show. Paddy Casey took over an interview with Trevor Lane. So this is Trevor Lane part 2. And so welcome to episode 28, and we're excited to get this one going.
Yeah, it was we just wrapped up with Trevor. I just wrapped up with Trevor. So I'm about, I don't know, 25-30 minute mark. You could transition to the Paddy Casey show with Trevor Lane. No Swider involved. But no, I said this to you when we were before we started recording. Trevor's like forgotten more about the Lakers than I've ever known, than most people have ever known. He knows the ins and outs, gives a nice playoff preview. And yeah, if you want more Trevor, he's a fellow Blue Wire member. Lakers
Yep.
Nation podcast. He primes you on literally anything you could ever think of with the Lakers. He also answers a lot of questions in the chat, which I mentioned. So yeah, check that out. Great Twitter too, Trevor_Lane.
Just shout out Trevor, man. He's obviously been a big supporter of our show. He came on our show twice, and I mean, he has a lot of things going on, obviously with the Lakers in the playoffs. And if you guys have ever seen his Twitter, the detail that he puts into his tweets, from the Lakers playoff standings to all the scenarios that are going on, like, he is an unbelievable resource on Twitter if you're a Lakers fan and you want to know just the ins and outs of everything. So shout out Trevor Lane.
Yeah, absolutely. The reason for that too is, I mean, we want a little bit more of a fan perspective, which I'm sure everyone can sympathize with. There's a lot of Lakers fans that tune into the show. So yeah, I feel very prepared for the playoffs now, thanks to Trevor. But the other thing we should mention, Swider, biggest episode to date last week with Tyler Kolick, our close personal friend now.
Yeah.
The numbies on that episode, we were just flying up the charts. So shout out to the listeners, shout out Tyler. And I think, I don't know, a lot of Q's people tune into every episode. Marquette might be the only fan base I've seen that can rival Q's in terms of diehardness.
Yeah, I mean, Marquette is obviously a big fan base, and when you have the biggest player of the year on, from that fan base, I bet there's a lot of people tuning in. So shout out to Marquette. Shout out to the Marquette fans. It's probably the only time I'll ever say that. But shout out to Marquette fans for tuning in and making this the biggest episode, besides our preview episode, right? Besides our first episode.
Yeah,
So
exactly. And if you guys are still
so
tuning in, we actually have Dwayne Wade planned for next week, and then Steve Novak the week after. So stay tuned for that.
just a Marquette podcast now.
Yeah, big Golden Eagles pod. But
Yep.
that's why we're about, I don't know. It was like 18 hours ago that you were in crypto.com for the playing game. One of the more bizarre NBA games in general I've ever watched. The fourth quarter was just chaos beginning to end. Everyone was exhausted, hands on their knees, some sloppy plays, some turnovers, but ultimately you guys advanced. Now it's a 7-2 matchup. You got the Grizz. But first of all, how was the atmosphere? Because it was like blaring loud through the TNT broadcast.
Well, Patty, you've been to crypto before. Well, yeah, you've been to crypto for multiple games, right? So the Malkin game
Right.
might have been more realistic expectations because the first game was a LeBron record game. But if you've been to
Yeah,
crypto,
wait,
you
wait. How
know
about
it's
how about compare it to that in terms of loudness?
it was up there. It was up there. Obviously, when LeBron made the shot to pass the record, that
Yeah, that
was a
felt like a
different
movie.
level
It
of,
felt like everyone was
yeah.
like, it was like begin scene. He makes the shot. Everyone
Yeah.
goes wild. End scene. Like it was very planned out. It was very anticipated. Yeah.
Everyone's arms up and everything like that. Yeah, no, it
His
was
celebration
that
to
that
Schroeder's shot last night was actually like somewhat similar. I don't know if you caught that. I
yeah.
think that's just his new move now, just two hands in the air.
For sure. But I mean, just talking about the atmosphere last night, if you've been to crypto.com arena, it's especially when the Lakers play. When the Clippers is a totally different environment. When the Lakers
Hmm.
play, it's like a Hollywood event. Like, people are there to be impressed. Like, it's a very different atmosphere than like a Boston or Philly or even the Clippers atmosphere when we play in
Yeah.
there. Um, but last night it was probably the loudest I've been around in crypto, just being there for the playoffs, right? It was energetic. People were screaming, yelling to the refs, and it was a great environment. So shout out to all the fans coming out to crypto last night. It was a great environment, obviously, and we're excited to get a couple more games at home at least, right? So excited to keep on going in the playoffs and to see what this team could do. But yeah, absolutely unbelievable atmosphere. The game was back and
Right.
forth. We
Yeah.
made a
How
huge
how,
run at the.
how
Go ahead.
nerve-wracking was it on the bench?
Yeah, I mean, just the way the game was going, I wouldn't say it was the same level of play as the 2016 finals of LeBron and
Yeah.
the Warriors. But in terms of like two really good offensive teams like struggling to score for the last like 4 minutes, I mean, it was pretty similar to that in that case, right? LeBron makes
Yeah,
a three with like 2 minutes and 30 seconds left to tie it up, and then Schroeder the next bucket was Schroeder's three with 1.4 seconds
right.
left, and then obviously AD fouls Mike Conley in the corner, so it's 98-98. And for an NBA game where we've seen teams score 160 points this year,
Yeah,
it was definitely a different type of atmosphere, like a different type of game in terms of that
yeah.
aspect. You could tell
Just
the
just an
intensity ramped
absolute
up.
rock fight. The
Oh,
Wolves
big
didn't
time.
score for the last 6 minutes. I don't know. It was kind of cool, almost like the nerves that you could kind of see setting in. A lot of guys were getting a little tight. Like you're saying, it was the exact same atmosphere as Game 7 in 2016. Your point.
I'm not saying that. I'm saying the same type of ending.
No, I know what you're getting at. I know what you're getting at. But yeah, I mean, what are kind of your main takeaways going into this next series here?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing for us is just getting some rest. Like we played 6 games in 10 days, and LeBron's been in like this playoff mode for these past
Right.
6, 7 games, right? Like just the overall this prepared mentality that he's had now that he gets to have 4 days off and kind of like this break of to reevaluate the team, where we are. Like, I think that's going to be huge for our team. I think we're going to come out with a different type of level of energy going into this next game, just because we'll have a little bit of time to rest and prepare. So I know all these guys are going to do everything that they can to be as prepared as possible. And yeah, I'm excited. I'm excited for this next
Yeah.
series, man. I think this we beat Memphis twice in the regular season, so obviously the regular season is different than the playoffs, but I think we have a really good chance to go in there and surprise some people and hopefully come out with a win.
Yeah, I think too with like the amount of pressure you guys have had for basically I don't know the last 6 to 8 weeks, it's like every single game is a must win. It feels like you guys have been in the playoffs for the last 2 months, but I think there's
Yeah.
almost like do you feel like there might be almost a sense of relief now that you've kind of made it? And obviously there's not relief where like you have to ranch it up. It's actually in the playoffs now, but it's like all right, we're here. Prepare for
Well,
one team. Let's
it's kind of
go.
been like that since we were 2-10, right? Like I don't know if you saw Lakers Instagram post last night, but Coach Ham came into the locker room after the game and he wrote 2-10. Then he wrote 0.3% chance to make the playoffs, and then he wrote playoffs at the bottom. And he's like kind of like going through the journey of our season, right? We start
Mhm.
out 2-10. Like everyone's counting us out. Lakers suck. Lakers are bust. They should try and get Wembanyama, which just doesn't even make sense because we have to swap picks with New Orleans
With New
anyways.
Orleans, yeah.
Um,
Which, by the way, is not
so
happening now, thanks to
it's
last
not
night,
happening.
because
It's
Nolan
not
can only
happening.
finish at eighth. So,
Exactly. So it's just a very, very, very roller coaster season, and just to kind of cap it off like that with the trade deadline and everything that's kind of happened throughout our season with different players on our roster and everything like that. It's been a crazy season to be a part of, but really happy that we were able to get into the playoffs and make a change,
yeah, I
make
think
a change for the better.
that's one of those things that like you won't actually fully contextualize till you're like reflecting on it. But like you said, rest. The schedule just came out. First game Sunday, 2 days off. Then you play Wednesday, 2 days off. Then you play Saturday. Then from there, it's one day in between. But
Yep.
obviously, as always noted on the schedules, yeah, 5 through 7 if necessary, with a bunch of asterisks next to it,
Yeah.
barring a sweep. Yeah, that's a good point, Ben.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think everyone's excited to watch some Lakers playoff basketball.
More so LeBron in the playoffs, right? Like let's
Right.
get LeBron back in the playoffs, right? I think last year, I mean, obviously, wasn't the Warriors Celtics one of the most watched finals in a while or something like that, like
I think
since LeBron was in
probably,
the finals.
which I want to get to here in
Um,
a second, but go ahead.
but yeah, just LeBron back in the playoffs. I'm excited just to see him back there. Obviously, being his teammate and a
Yeah,
guy who's gonna be
it's
watching him
pretty
very
fucking
closely from now
sweet.
on. Yeah,
Like being his teammate is one thing. Being his teammate in the playoffs is like, God, that's just such a cool life. But
yeah.
the other thing I saw Sweater on Twitter, I forget who it was. So I think it was either Dave McMenamin or I don't know, some Lakers beat writer that I follow because I'm all over Lakers Twitter now. But um, last night was LeBron's first postseason game with the Lakers that was full capacity, like a full crowd, which is kind of wild.
It's crazy if you think
What's it,
about it.
his
Like,
fifth year, right?
yeah, he's he's already got the Lakers one of these rings, right? So it's like it's crazy to think about how that was his first real home playoff game.
Right. Yeah. I don't know. I was that like it makes sense when you go through the years, obviously, but it was reading that at first, I was like, there's just no way that this is right. This guy
Yeah.
just lying through his fingers. But I guess bigger picture. I keep saying that. I keep saying bigger picture. I said bigger picture to Trevor like 10 times, but removing the Lakers from it. Our mailbag question of the week. It's from Cody. He writes in and asks, besides your series, what are your predictions for the playoff series? So we'll go series by series, Swider. And
So
you kind of hinted at it with the Warriors Celtics, but so all right, let's go. 2-7 is Lakers Grizzlies. 3-6 Sacramento Warriors. Who do you got? How many games?
it's crazy because the way that Sacramento's been playing this year, you would think that Sacramento could probably beat them, but then you have the Warriors.
It's
Like
just the
the
pedigree.
Warriors, the pedigree, Wiggins is back. Um, it feels like they're getting together. I don't know if they can make a run all the way to the finals again, but it seems like just with that championship pedigree, with Sacramento not being back, it feels like a Warriors in 6 kind of series to me.
Yeah, I agree. I think Sacramento probably wins game one, and then they get
Yeah.
a little ahead of their skis. Their fans are fucking awesome. So
Oh,
everyone's going wild, light the beam,
I
that whole
haven't
thing.
been. Yeah, I haven't been to every single NBA arena, obviously, and Philly and Boston are notorious for having really great
Yeah.
crowds and really passionate fan bases. But I would say out of all the arenas I've been to, Sacramento's had the best fans.
Yeah, it's like they're like a college campus
Yeah,
almost.
yeah.
Like their
Like
fans
even
are so
even the preseason games were rocking,
right. Yeah.
rocking.
Yeah, I did not know they had that in them because they haven't had a good team in like our entire lifetime. So I don't know. Pretty good stuff. But yeah, I think I agree with you there. I'm gonna try and disagree with some of these so it's better podcasting. But 4-5 Suns Clippers, who you got?
I'm gonna go Suns in 5.
Suns in 5. All right. I was gonna say a Suns sweep. I think that's over.
Suns sweep.
Over quick. I don't know if the Clippers got it in them.
I just don't think the Clippers, like, without having PG there, and
I
like
know it
they're
kind
still
of
trying to
sucks.
adjust to having like a new roster. I think their rosters is good. Like I think they have pieces that complement each other. I think Eric Gordon was a good pickup. I think, I mean, they had that incident last game with Mason Plumlee and Bones Highland, but I think both those guys are good pickups and fit the roster, right? Like it's all going to depend on how many minutes can Kawhi play a night, right?
Hmm.
Since he's obviously he played all 24 minutes in the second half against us the other night, and
Yeah,
obviously
he looked good
they
in that
beat
game.
us. He did. So that's gonna be the question, and obviously it's gonna be is Norman Powell gonna be able to play to that level? Is Eric Gordon gonna be able to knock down shots? Is Russ and that Kawhi dynamic gonna keep on working? So, yeah, I'm excited for that series, but I got Suns in 5.
I got sweep. So I guess that would take care of the West. Well, no. Who do you think wins the
Oh
playing games?
yeah, I mean I think I would go.
Tonight it's Pelicans Thunder
Yeah,
in
I got
NOLA.
I got Pelicans over Thunder, and then I'm probably gonna go
Okay.
Pelicans over Minnesota too. I
Really?
think I think I think the Pelicans will get the 8th seed, and I think honestly that would be a great series between the Pelicans and Nuggets in the first round because I think there's two contrasting styles. Um, 'Cause the Pelicans are a fun young team that's going to get up and down, run, um, and then you have Denver who's kind of just been like this juggernaut all year offensively, but with Jokic you kind of got to slow up the pace.
Yeah. Yeah, I think I actually have the Thunder winning both games.
Wow.
They won me over in the LeBron scoring record game. I thought they were like way better than I anticipated, but tough. They don't really have any bigs, but yeah, I think they win both. And then I would love to pick them over the Nuggets just for pure chaos reasons. But I think the Nuggets probably win in like 4 or 5.
Yeah,
Pretty
I got
quick
Nuggets
series.
winning. I got Nuggets winning in 5 or 6.
If it is the Pelicans though, or Minnesota, I think they could give the Nuggets like real problems.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think we agreed on everyone there. That's fun.
Yep.
The East is potentially a little bit more interesting, but I'm assuming that before we move on from the West, I'm assuming you're picking yourself. You're picking the Lakers. I also am. You mentioned
Bang.
Warriors Celtics last year, very good ratings. Lakers Warriors second round series is insanity. Like that's got to be the
Steph
biggest
versus
like
LeBron.
second round series we've probably ever seen.
I like the way you think, Patty.
Don't you think so?
No, I do. I do think so. Yeah, no, it's definitely gonna be a hell of a series. I'm excited. Oh, hopefully we get there.
Yeah. No
Obviously,
no bulletin board material here.
yeah,
Dylan
yeah,
Brooks will
but
come after us.
yeah, exactly. But yeah, no, just hoping that we get that series. Steph versus LeBron in the second round. Obviously, it will be quick flights back and forth. We don't have to go all the way to Memphis, which would be
Yeah.
nice. And yeah, just looking forward to it. Hopefully we can get to that. And uh Warriors, Lakers, LeBron versus Steph. Second round sounds good to
Yeah.
me.
Box office as it sounds as they say.
Box
Um,
office.
but moving to the Eastern Conference, we could do this quicker. Milwaukee versus either Miami, Toronto, Chicago. First of all, who you have winning tonight, Toronto, Chicago.
I got Chicago winning tonight. I think
Hmm.
with all the comments about Nick Nurse recently, I just feel like Toronto's just not in it right now. So I'm just gonna
Yeah,
go
it's kind of
Chicago.
bizarre.
Yeah, it's very bizarre this would happen like at this time of the season when they're still like if they were like a Portland or if they were like a Washington Wizards who had like a decent record but like weren't able to
Kind
make
of
it to the play
punted
in.
on it at the end. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, I would get those comments, but like for him to say like he needs a couple weeks after the season to decide his future when his team's still playing, it's just like a
Yeah.
very weird
I
plot
don't know if
twist. So
yeah.
yeah, I would go Chicago tonight just based on the I think they've played better as the season's gone on. I think Pat Bev's been a really good addition to them to kind of bring some sort of leadership and togetherness. I think they're motivated to win. I think Demar's going to come out shooting tonight, and I think they'll win that game.
Okay, so that would be what, Miami, Chicago? You think
Miami,
Chicago wins
Chicago.
that game too? Or
I think Chicago wins. I think Chicago wins that game too.
the Heat,
Miami looked like
they
such a
look
mess last night,
yeah, they did not look good last night. It was weird.
and I just think with Zach LaVine, DeMar DeRozan, it's gonna be hard for them to match up with those guys. Obviously, Miami, like when Miami makes the East Conference Finals this year. I'm not trying to take anything away from those guys, but it's just like something's going on over there, and I mean. I know Pat Riley and that Heat culture can get it together and possibly give Milwaukee a little bit of a
Right.
series, but
Yeah.
I just think overall it's going to be really tough and to kind of get it together at this point of the season.
Yeah, I was kind of disappointed. I thought Miami would win last night and then give the Celtics like a really tough series. And I thought they would have swept the Celtics actually. I want to see if Adam gets pissed off by that. Nope, not off camera. But all right, so that would be what? Bulls, Bucks. I'm assuming you're picking the Bucks there.
Yeah, I'll probably go Bucks in 4 or 5, 5 at
Yeah.
most.
I'll give them one. They won. That was a series last year too. The Bulls won one game, but
Yeah,
and then Boston, Atlanta. I think this is another sweep probably.
Boston in 4 or 5. Yeah, I mean,
Yeah,
shout out Sadiq Bey. Obviously, played great last night in the playing game, but I mean, Boston will be ready to go. I can see Atlanta like stealing like the first game against Boston, like just waking them up a little bit.
getting the
Like,
people going. Yeah,
yeah, exactly. Oh yeah, like Atlanta could scare these guys, maybe bring them to 6 or 7. Nah, if
yeah,
anything, I think they might steal game one. Trae Young goes off, but after that, I think Boston will handle them in 5.
yeah. I agree. Brooklyn Sixers, also first round. I think this might. I'm gonna say 5 games. I feel like the Sixers lose
Yeah.
one. I was gonna say 6, but Sixers lose one every year. Harden's health is still a bit up in the air. So
Well, it kind of reminds me of that series a couple years ago when they played against Brooklyn. Is that the 3-6 as well? I think that was a 3-6 Sixers
yeah, and
versus
that was like when D'Lo was still with the Nets. They
when
won game
D'Lo
one.
was going
Amir
off. Yeah, yeah,
Johnson was looking at his phone on the bench.
yeah, yeah. I could see something like that. Mikal Bridges getting off one game, but yeah, no, Sixers are too good. I got Sixers in 4 or 5.
Yeah, Cavs, Knicks. I'm going Cavs in 6.
See, I got the Knicks in this one.
Really? All right, our first disagreement. Let's go.
I got
Let's
the Knicks.
go.
I like the dynamic of Jalen Brunson, Julius Randle. I don't think the Cavs have what it really takes to like win in a playoff series yet. They haven't played together in a playoff series.
Really?
And you can say the same thing about the Knicks, but Jalen Brunson has made it to the Western Conference Finals. Um, Julius Randle has played in a playoff series and then has failed in a playoff series, right? Like he has that experience of failing in a playoff series. So I think the Cavs are a nice story, a nice team that has done some things this year and looked like a contender for most part of the season. But I got Knicks in 7.
Oh wow, winning in Cleveland.
Yep.
Wow. I'm excited to see the MSG atmosphere. We haven't
Oh,
gotten
me
that
too.
enough because they always suck. But
I think the coolest thing during COVID was like, well, not. I mean, there wasn't a lot of cool things that came out of COVID, but I think one of the coolest things is like the whole entire year, the NBA, like no one's allowed in the arenas, and then like all of a sudden they like lift these restrictions and it's a packed MSG
yeah,
going crazy at Trae Young, just like dumping stuff on their team. That was an unbelievable like first round of the playoffs and like to be reintroduced to uh fans again. That was
yeah,
just like an unbelievable first round
that was
series.
just like throwing you right into the fire. That was one of the more, I don't know, like dramatic first round 5 game series that you could possibly imagine. Like it was not
I
really
agree.
that competitive, but um yeah, so I guess we're through the East there. Who do you see coming out of the East overall? The Bucks? I feel like you're gonna say the Celtics.
One of those three teams, I think those three teams have really separated themselves. I think just like that second round series of I think that first seed was really pivotal because I think whoever comes out of that second series of Philly and Boston is going to be like it's going to be tough to kind of wake up for that
Yeah.
next round and be like we're ready to go. So
Hmm.
it's kind of like last year when the Celtics and Bucks came out of that series and the
They just
Heat.
beat up on each other. Yeah.
Yeah, that game that was like a final series almost. You
Yeah.
know what I mean? Like, um, yeah, but it's going to be a 7 game series in the Eastern Conference Finals. But I want to go Celtics just because of the shot
Yeah.
making
I
ability
saw it coming. Yeah, I saw it
and
coming.
Chris Middleton isn't fully healthy, so I think that's a huge factor that we saw last year that was able to propel the Celtics over. And the Celtics just have so many guys who can step up in big moments. Like even like Derek White could have 30 one night in the playoffs and lift your team up. So yeah, I got
Yeah.
Celtics
I
out of
don't
the
know. I
East,
feel like
Lakers out of the West.
I just trust, yeah. Celtics Lakers, that'd be fucking sweet. I think I just trust Milwaukee more. I think Giannis is head and shoulders the best player in any series. I think he's the, I don't know, maybe the most competitive guy in the whole world.
But is there a better two players than Jalen Brown and Jason Tatum?
I would say Giannis Antetokounmpo and Drew Holiday.
Wow, I don't think I would agree with that. I think last year Drew Holiday had his moments, but I think just over. I mean,
I think both. I don't know. This is going to be a hot take.
so
I think Drew is better than Jalen Brown.
wow, wow.
Is that
I
crazy?
I think that's a very bold statement. Yes, I would say that's crazy.
I don't know. What is he, the best defender in the league?
Yeah, but in terms of are you giving him the ball at the end of the game to go win you a game? I just think Jalen. I mean, who knows? But I just think Jalen Brown is just such a more viable offensive option. He's a very good defender. He can guard the team's best player, but he doesn't have to because Marcus Smart's on the team. And that's the thing about Drew Holiday. He says there's so much energy guarding the best player on the other team that offensively it's hard for him some games to get it going. And without Chris Middleton being 100% healthy, I think that's going to be the difference in that series. This is obviously assuming that they beat the Sixers in the second round, which I think is going to be a really
Yeah.
tough series too.
Yeah. I hope the Sixers stay healthy. I'd like to see Philly get farther than the second round for once. I
I
think
mean,
they
but
might be
think about the draw that they've had. They kind of like missed their opportunity that year with Atlanta.
right.
Like when
Yeah, that
Atlanta
was the
just
year. That was 100% the year. I still think they probably would have lost to the Bucks, but at
oh, I
least
do too. But
at least you got a conference finals under your belt, and like it's not like, oh, they can't get past the second round. That's the whole
it's like
narrative.
and then it's like the Doc Rivers thing of like not being able to get past the second round. Like
Yeah.
besides the Celtics run with the big three.
Yeah, that's another like bizarre situation where they were, I don't know, one of the best teams in the league for the entire year, and then if they lose in the second round, he's probably gone, which is just like bizarre.
Yeah, yeah,
I mean,
and
you kind of get it,
you can make
but
an
I
argument
don't
that
know.
those three teams are the best three teams in the NBA too.
Yeah, I think for most of the year, they've definitely been the most consistent.
There's definitely a world where you can make an argument that those three teams are the best three teams in the NBA, and one of them's going to. I mean, the Celtics and Sixers have to play each other in the second round. So,
Yeah. Yeah, it's kind of screwed up how that draw went. But I mean, in the West, it's been Kings have probably been the most consistent, but every other team you can point to, it's like there's been like some craters, and then you're like, well, I mean, the Warriors, yeah, they won 44 games, but they're still the Warriors, so I trust them more than like the Cavs winning 52.
yeah, I think with KD with the Suns, I think the Suns are probably the favorite coming out of the West. But
Mm-hmm.
I just think when with the healthy LeBron, healthy AD, I mean, obviously I'm biased. I just
I don't even
feel
know if it's really
confident.
biased though. It's not like it's a year where like the Spurs won 67 games and you're picking LeBron AD. It's like the West is completely wide open.
I think not having to play
So
the Suns till the Western Conference Finals is obviously a plus too.
yeah.
I mean, you get to run into the Warriors second round, but still,
Yeah. Any Western Conference series that could shake out as long I don't know. I mean like Kings Grizzlies would still be entertaining, but as long as like one of you guys, Warriors, Suns, like every single matchup you look at, you're like, oh, that's a sweet game. That's a sweet series.
it would be funny if we went from a LeBron Steph second round matchup to a De'Aaron Fox versus John Morant second round
Yeah.
matchup. Like, what do you think the
Which
NBA
is
wants more?
yeah. Which is kind of wild that like in terms of seeding then the Ja Fox one is what's supposed to happen. But
Yeah,
I don't know, betting odds wise, everyone picking them, I don't know if that's like necessarily expected,
I agree.
but well shout out Cody for his mailbag question of the week. Great return, Swider Show at Gmail to get featured on the show. Like I say, every time I read one, but next segment time. It's a Copycat League. Swider, this is something you're very passionate about. We were texting about. This was something that you requested to talk about on the show. It's been talked about ad nauseum on every platform, but we haven't really dedicated specifically a conversation about it. It is NIL talk. I don't know. Your takes. It sounds like you had some fiery ones. Sounds like you were fired up about this, trying to find a
Yeah,
better adjective than fire. But
yeah.
um, I don't know. Do you want to get into the nitty gritty of it, or you just have some overarching kind of like feelings towards it?
I just have some overarching
Right.
feelings
You have the
towards the whole
floor.
situation,
It
right?
is your show. Yeah.
I think. All right. So first of all, right, with the whole entire NIL ordeal now, it makes it seem like the transfer portal shouldn't be as prevalent as a thing. Because if we're offering these kids all these types of money, for them to be able to leave year after year and be able to play right away doesn't seem like it's that fair anymore, right? Because
Hmm.
we're paying these guys money. Second of all, just the loyalty aspect, and I'm all for guys getting paid money, right? I think throughout my whole entire college career, um, I was in an era where I'm not trying to sound like an old guy now, but I was in an era where some guys were getting paid, and then it led to coaches getting suspended. It led to players being investigated, and then because it wasn't legal at the time, right?
Right.
But now it's coming to a point where guys again are asking for $1 million to go to their school, and I don't think that's good for college basketball either.
Hmm.
So you get offered $1 million to go someplace, and then you transfer after a year. It just kind of seems like I don't really love that idea, right? I say this all the time. There was a guy in my draft class. I've told Patty this story. I think I've told this story before, just not on the podcast, but before that. I was in an
Hmm.
NBA workout, and he was asking me about if I was interested in the transfer portal or not because the offers he was getting in the transfer portal. So I was like, no, I'm sticking in the NBA draft process. Like I'm ready to go. I'm not, like I love Syracuse and everything like that, but it was I thought it was time for me to take that next step. He was like, no, you should enter the transfer portal. I'm getting $500,000 offers. So this kid, no need to be named, decides
Right.
to go to a school. He got paid a lot of money to go to that school, but then he ended up being the fourth option on that school. And he kind of ruined his chances to be a NBA draft pick or NBA lock, right? Um, and I think a lot of these kids are looking at the immediate monetary value. But for some kids, you need to do that because this is
Right.
the most money that they're going to make for the next 7, 8 years of their career, based on if they were to enter the G League as an Exhibit 10 contract, making $90,000, or if they were to go overseas. And mostly, if you're a really good college player, your starting salary overseas will be around 70 to 80 grand, with obviously being the ability to keep on making more and more
Right.
money down the
Yeah,
line.
but you got to like carve out like 5 years to like really, really make money.
To really, really make money, to make that 500, 600,000 that some of these kids are getting offered for averaging 12 points a game in college.
Yeah.
So
So what
just
do you think the
talking,
fix is?
I'm not even there yet. I'm not even there to the fix.
Like,
I'm
do you think
just
like there should
more
be like a
upset.
cap on it? Yeah, you're upset as a fan.
I'm upset as a fan of college basketball of where our society is going in terms of like the loyalty of some some of these players in these programs. I
Hmm.
think Hunter Dickinson is a great college player. He's been arguably one of the best big man for 3 years in college basketball. Like him leaving Michigan,
Yeah, it rubs you the wrong way.
it rubs me the wrong way because it's just like you've been so good there, the system
Right.
fits you and
I
everything like
think
that.
too, like the fact that Caleb Love transferred, like actually made me legitimately sad. Like he is a
It's
North
like
Carolina college basketball legend. And like
and it's like
5 years ago,
what are you
there's
gonna
no
remember?
way.
Yeah.
Yeah. And now
What are
he's
you gonna
like
remember?
he's
What are
gonna
you gonna
play for
remember these
Michigan.
guys as, right? Like he's going to play
Yeah.
for Michigan now. Is he going to be a Michigan Wolverine, or is he going to be the Caleb Love that brought North Carolina to the championship? It's just like that whole like loyalty piece in my eyes is is something that I think we've lost in college basketball. I was talking to our friend of the show, Buddy Boeheim, earlier today, and just obviously like everyone's situation is different. My situation is different than the next guy's. But obviously, me coming from Villanova to Syracuse and how much I loved the school and appreciated the school, like that wouldn't have left my mind when coming to the NIL piece of like this school has treated me well, has loved me, has done everything it can. Like I'm gonna stay here for another year because I know at the end of the day, this is gonna be my best chance to make the NBA as well. And that's where the real like for me, that's where the real money is. Making,
Right.
I mean, no discredit to anyone who's trying to make money, right? Like in
Yeah.
NIL. But making $400,000, $500,000 for a year is okay, but it's not gonna set you up for life, right?
Hmm.
But I don't know. When it comes to fixing NIL, I think there has to be. I mean, I think the changing of the NCAA leadership is going to be a big thing. But now it's almost like you're not making kids work for anything anymore. You know what I
Right.
mean? You're not letting kids go through adversity, right? Like they transfer schools from school to school, and it's like NBA free agency, and it's like where is the actual ideology of like you going to school and loving your university and working through hardships and becoming a better person on the other end of it,
Hmm.
right? So I mean, I don't know. Everyone's situation is different. I'm okay with that, right? Like if a kid from a mid major wants to transfer to a high major so he can make a lot, so he can make money and support his family, and obviously everyone's situation is different from where they come from and everything like that. Um, but I do find that as an issue, and obviously these COVID years have given kids the opportunity
Yeah.
to graduate from universities, which I think is totally different. If you graduate from university and you spent 4 years
Go
at
get
that
a master's
university
degree. Yeah.
and you want to go get a master's degree at another school and use your COVID year, and that maybe that's the opportunity for you to make more money. I think that's a little bit different, but um, yeah, I just think it's the wild wild west right now in college basketball, and I don't think it's. I just yeah, it's
Yeah,
just
it's
tough
so
because
it's like everyone's just adjusting to it. It just completely it was like there was none of it going on, and then overnight, what, July 1st, 2021, all of a sudden it's like, yeah, you can make money and just changed everything immediately overnight.
but at least that year that it didn't affect recruiting, right? Like now it's like
Yeah.
the guys who have the most money are going to be the best teams, at least from a talent perspective, from a
Hmm.
perceived talent perspective, right? There's going to be like it would be really sad if FAU lost their whole entire team because they couldn't pay their guys
Right.
the
But
same
don't
way
you
in
think,
Arkansas or LSU or whatever.
right. But playing devil's advocate, don't you think some of it, I don't know if I've heard this point. So you're a recruit, right? Now it's the
Yeah,
transfer portal. It's absolute chaos. When you were recruited, you're looking at the rosters that you're getting recruited with. We talked about it with Tyler. It's like, okay, where can I go and actually play?
yeah,
Now you have to, like, committing early is almost, it's more dangerous than it's ever been because you don't know if someone's going to leave or someone's going to commit to the school that you're already committed to, or transfer to the school you're already committed to, and like basically get recruited over. So do you think the fits there and like the roster turnover also is producing more kids to leave after going through adversity, like you're saying, because there's this adversity that comes upon them that they weren't even expecting when they committed, if that makes sense?
yeah. I think that's a part of it, but I also think like some of these kids have to lock in their spot early because the transfer portal might take away their spot later. So
Yeah.
like obviously women's basketball is a lot different in terms of like the money perspective and everything like that. But my sister Courtney came in as a sophomore in high school because she didn't want the transfer portal to take away her spot. She came to
Yeah.
Richmond as a sophomore in high school. Like that's like really rare. So I think everyone's idea of when to commit to schools like it's going to be different. But that's one of the reasons why LeBron James' son Bronny James hasn't committed to a school yet because he's waiting for the transfer portal to settle
Right. Yeah.
and see
That's
what these
actually the
rosters are.
example I had in mind.
Yeah, so I think everyone's timeline's different. I know for me, I didn't want to like. I mean, it was different when I was playing, but I didn't want to string out my recruitment. I wanted to know where I was going. I wanted my family to know where I was going and kind of have an idea of what the next couple of years of my college, what it was going to be like, so we could plan
Journey.
for it. But
Yeah.
yeah, journey was going to be. But yeah,
Uh,
NIL just kind of made it like the world, like the Wild West out here.
yeah, it's just I think everyone's adjusting to it. It's very hard to follow. It's like not even worth keeping track of who's in the portal because you could just assume everyone is and then go backwards from there.
Yeah.
But I don't know. Some great takes, Wider. Very poetic takes there. Good discussion. Good NIL talk. But with that, that was a little bit longer of an opening than we usually do. But um, I don't know. Any words sign off here before we kick it to Trevor on some Lakers primers?
No, just really thankful for you guys for the last episode. Hopefully we can just continue building.
Yep. Keep building.
Shout out the listeners. Follow all platforms as always. You guys know it by now. If this is your first time listening, at swidershow@gmail.com. Email us your questions at Swider Show on Instagram and obviously at Swider Show on Twitter as well. But Pat does a great job at the end of explaining that. So you guys
Great
are seeing
job.
it twice this episode.
All right, Swider. Appreciate it. Go Lakers. And we'll kick it to Trevor here. All right, everyone. As we've probably mentioned on the pre-show, Cole will not be joining us on this interview. This is my first solo interview. We'll see how it goes. I'm sure you guys are all disappointed Cole won't be here, but we wanted more of a fan perspective as it's a big time for Lakers fans, and there's really no better person on the internet in Lakers Nation, pun there, to do this. It is the host of Lakers Nation. He runs all of Lakers Nation website, putting out the best Lakers content out there. So Trevor Lane, thanks for rejoining the Swider Show, and really excited to have you here.
Oh, no problem. Thank you so much for having me. Exciting time of year. Obviously, Lakers now officially in the postseason. So so yeah, I can't wait to dive into it.
Yeah, I think it's a day that Lakers fans have been waiting for a while. First things first, Trevor, I wanted to extend some sincere gratitude. So if you don't follow Trevor on Twitter, it is at Trevor_Lane. I wanted to thank you for your about month and a half, 2 month, what Lakers fans should be rooting for updates daily, because I think that sifted through what was probably the most insane playoff push, I'm sure, in Lakers history, maybe in basketball history. So yeah, thank you very much for those. That kind of made sense of a lot of things.
Well, I'm glad that was helpful. That was a recommendation from a few different people, and said, hey, it would be helpful if you would do this. And I said, okay, I guess I will. So I put it out there every day. What fans should be looking to have happen around the NBA, and it was a nice way to just kind of keep track of things, and especially because results were, well, not every day, largely going the Lakers' way. It certainly made it more fun. It would be a much more depressing experience if the Lakers were just losing and falling out of things. But the way things went, and it ended up working out great.
It was very fun on the check marks too late at night. I'm on the East Coast, so it was about 2 a.m. I'd check in, see all the check marks from you. So also you got a little shout out from Vando there on his birthday. Jared Vanderbilt sent the check mark over, so I'm sure that was cool.
Yeah, it was great to see that, we had one day where there was nothing going on. It was Jared Vanderbilt's birthday. So what Lakers fans should root for became Jared Vanderbilt to have a happy birthday. And then he followed suit and followed the pattern and gave us the check mark to say that indeed he did. Mission accomplished on that one. So that was cool. That not only did he respond to it, but clearly he was following along and saw what the bit was and everything. So absolutely. Yeah, it was great.
Yeah, it was fun to read. Very well deserved too. But I do want to get into the big picture as you've recapped on all your platforms. Pretty crazy Lakers season. Like I said, this day is something that we've all been sort of waiting for. And then I do want to get into the Grizzlies matchup. But first things first, Trevor, have you come down to earth from last night? I mean, it's 18 hours after the game ended last night. of the more wild NBA games in general, let alone the stakes that were in crypto.com last night.
Yeah, I mean that was an absolutely crazy game. It wasn't the prettiest game for sure, but it was a crazy game. It was a stressful game. We were doing our live play-by-play. We
Yep.
have a playback channel. We were doing that. Oh man, I mean, that was getting through that game was certainly not easy, but fortunately the Lakers, they find a way to come back in the fourth quarter there. The Grizzlies, I mean, their offense just fell to pieces or I'm sorry, the
Yeah,
Wolves, their offense
Minnesota.
fell to
Yeah.
pieces. And the Lakers managed to get it done. So you'll take the win, but at the same time, I don't know that that win necessarily inspires a lot of confidence from Lakers fans
Mhm.
right now, because there's, it's not like they went out there and performed great, but bottom line, a win is a win, and so
Right.
you'll take it, and now you move on.
Yeah, I think it was kind of a game for Lakers fans of cliches. You're going to bed last night. You're saying a win's a win. Scoreboard doesn't ask how many or how it asks how many. So ultimately, I mean, they advanced. They're in the 7-2 now. They're playing the Grizzlies. But sticking on last night's game, I think it was like you're saying. The biggest concern was those first three quarters. Obviously, the Lakers in the fourth quarter kind of ramped up their defense, and as you recapped on your podcast today, it was basically 9 points in the fourth quarter, save for that AD foul at the end of the game. But how much of those three quarters did you think was kind of an outlier of the Wolves shooting above what they usually do versus Lakers actually kind of having some lapses and struggling on their end?
Yeah, I think it took both things, and that was one of my concerns going in. Was okay with Rudy Gobert out. That means you're going to see the 3-point volume for the Wolves is going to go up. And the 3-point shot is the great equalizer in the NBA. You can have a team that is
Mhm.
lacking a little bit in talent that can keep into games if they're hitting a lot of their threes. And that's exactly what was happening. The game was playing out exactly how the Wolves needed it to in order for them to get a win. They were hitting, it felt like every three they put up was going in. Certainly when Mike Conley was the guy that was shooting them. Everything was dropping. And some of that was the Lakers defense. Some of that was the Lakers defense just making some poor decisions. There were a couple of plays where LeBron, who I thought, I mean, had a fine game overall, but lost some players off the ball, wound up with an open 3-point shot. There was a play where Austin Reeves doubled down into the post on Kyle Anderson when you don't really need to do that. And that gave up an open look from deep for the Wolves when they swung the ball. So there were some mistakes defensively that helped the Wolves create those 3-point shots, in addition to the Lakers offense, where they couldn't seem to get anything to drop on their end. The
Mhm.
Wolves were hitting everything. The Lakers couldn't get anything to go. And so that was creating opportunities for the Wolves to get defensive rebounds and then push and at least get into semi-transition, get some cross matches, and then get open looks from deep as a result. So you had all of that kind of coming together in the perfect storm, as it were, of the Lakers winding up down for much of this game. I think some of it was an outlier, but some of it in terms of the shooting, the number of shots that were going in for the Wolves, but the Lakers defense and offensive production, I think were doing some things that allowed the Wolves to get those open looks. And so I think the Lakers were certainly in part responsible for what was going on in that game beyond just a hot shooting night from Minnesota.
Yeah, it is. It's funny. It's such a trend in the NBA now. You could watch a full game, and it's like at the end of the game, you might just look at it and be like, well, one team was hot from through the other just was kind of struggling. But fourth quarter ended up kind of being an equalizer. You did mention Kyle Anderson. One trend I noticed in the third quarter was they were really struggling with that lineup when he was at the five, and then the Wolves ended up going away from it because obviously, I mean, catch your best player, you got to bring him back in. He was in foul trouble, but I think most fans that tune into a 7-game playoff series, which you will in the Grizzlies, it's kind of trying to identify these trends and seeing what will carry over game to game. So do you see that as a blueprint that other teams might try and copy from with the Wolves with, pulling AD away from the basket? And obviously it has to do with personnel of other teams, but yeah, how do you kind of see that playing out? And I mean, the first round's the first round, but as they kind of try and make an actual push here.
Yeah, I think that's going to be the game plan for. I mean, we're going to see it against the Grizzlies. You're going to have Jaren Jackson Jr. is going to be behind the 3-point line for certain sets, and that's going to try to drag Anthony Davis away, and therefore create some scoring opportunities at the rim for John Morant being the primary guy there, but Desmond Bane can get to the rim as well. They've got other players who can do that kind of stuff. So I do think that's something that you're going to see moving forward. The question, as always, with something like that, with that kind of strategy, is is it worth the gamble? The gamble is on the other end. Does Anthony Davis just destroy
Right.
Kyle Anderson to the point where
Yeah.
the added spacing you have on the offensive end the other way is not worth it? The Wolves got away with it for quite a bit. So we'll see how that ultimately works out. You can, just like a team can create that kind of space against the Lakers by spreading out their offense, playing 5 out, playing smaller. The Lakers can punish that team as well for going smaller and for doing those things just by being dominant on the glass and pounding the ball inside. And I thought the Lakers started out with the game plan of doing that to begin the game.
Yeah.
And then as the shots continued to not drop, it felt like maybe the nerves kicked in a little bit, or they started to get a little bit worried. But ultimately their size, I think, was a big factor in this game. As far as will teams try to spread the Lakers out, though, yeah, I think it's going to happen. Just like you're going to see teams defensively do everything they can to take away Anthony Davis, send doubles at him, not let him receive the ball to begin with. When he does get it, send extra players, and then see if the Lakers can counter it or not.
Yeah, I think you're definitely familiar with this with your comments or replies that you get on Twitter, but there's a little crying from Lakers haters about the refereeing late in the game. I thought it was actually, I don't know, bad both ways a lot of the game, but like you're saying, that ultimately kind of pushed their comeback as they was able to get to the free throw line a lot, and it's the biggest common sense thing in basketball. If you're trying to come back, you got to score without the clock moving. But yeah, it'll just be interesting to see how that plays out.
I thought that was an inconsistently refereed game where what was a foul or wasn't a foul early in the early go. I thought they were letting a lot go early, and then they kind of reverted back to a fairly normal refereed game towards the end of the third and into the fourth quarter. That's tough. I mean, you hear that from players all the time. We just want consistency. So
consistency.
Yeah, I thought that was not a consistently refereed game, and so you've got fans on both sides who were not thrilled with stretches of that game.
Yeah, the way the Wolves playing was not necessarily conducive to drawing fouls either. The loose ball foul on LeBron, I don't know if I've ever seen that at any level of basketball at the end of the game.
Yeah, diving for the ball, and he kind of clips Taurean Prince and winds up being a loose ball foul on LeBron. Usually it's like the ball is loose, or if there's a player on the ground, it's like it's no holds barred at that point. You can have somebody can come flying in and drop the rocks people's elbow on the player on the ground, and it's not a foul because the ball's on the ground and everybody's going for it, right? And that's just kind of the way that it goes. So it was a bit strange to see that called as a foul, but I mean, I guess he did make contact with him, so just fortunately it didn't wind up costing the Lakers the game. But,
I know. Yeah, the Lakers, I guess you could say, devil's advocate would say they put themselves in the position not getting the ball in bounds, but I don't know, just a really bizarre call. So the other thing I wanted to touch on from last night's game is you on your podcast and on Twitter always give out the superstar of the game, superstar of the night. Last night, I know you were flirting with, you ended up going with LeBron, but Dennis Schroeder, I think anyone who watched that game, he really provided the spark off the bench. And D'Lo Russell was struggling a little bit. That was probably the most he's struggled since he's joined the team after the deadline. But the fascinating thing with the Lakers is they have these 4 guards, right? They have Beasley, they have Schroeder, they have Reeves, they have Russell. And last night, I had a lot of respect for him as a rookie head coach. You have your starting point guard. Russell's probably a bigger name than Dennis Schroeder. He's someone that coming into the game, a lot of people think of as Lakers maybe 3rd, 4th option. So he decides to go with Schroeder for basically the entire end of the game. I know he was in for the last possession, but do you see that being a trend throughout the playoffs where it's almost you kind of test those 4 guards throughout, depending on the matchup, and then whoever's night it is, you ride with them for the rest of the game?
Yeah, I think so. I think that's one of the luxuries that the Lakers have. I mean, you can kind of ride the hot hand. It was indeed, I thought D'Angelo Russell's worst game as a Laker, maybe worst game as a Laker ever. I don't know. I'd have to go back and look at his previous stint with the Lakers.
I always forget about the first stint. Yeah. I'm a new Lakers fan, Trevor, so I don't necessarily remember those days as well. But
there were some bad games for D'Lo at that point, but certainly his worst game as a Laker this season. And so I think Darvin Ham, who came into the year saying facts over feelings, right? Like the guys who are playing well are going to play. I thought that he did a nice job of backing that up. Now, I'm not saying he coached a perfect game or that everything is exactly as the way, fans are going to complain about something no matter what. There's going to be things that you can quibble over. But I thought that in terms of the critical decisions was D'Angelo Russell's not playing well. Dennis Schroeder is. So playing Dennis Schroeder more minutes than D'Angelo Russell. I thought that was He executed that very, very well, and
For sure.
obviously you don't get the win otherwise. I thought Wendy and Gabriel, he played a couple of minutes, showed that he wasn't going to have it that night. It wasn't a good matchup for him. And so that was it. He played 2 minutes, and Darvin said, no more. We're not going back to this. We're going elsewhere. I thought he made the correct decisions, even if it meant taking minutes away from guys who typically get them. And so credit to him for that, for recognizing that and going with the guys who were getting the job done.
Right. Absolutely. Yeah, I was very impressed by that. And like you said, people are going to complain no matter what, but takes some balls to go with that in your first ever, playoff game as a head coach. So, like I said, looking forward to the Memphis series. We talked about sort of that blueprint of the Jaren Jackson Jr. Maybe they try and pull AD away, but if you watch the Grizzlies at all, it's basically, I don't know, however many possessions are in a game, probably 90% of them are a high ball screen for Ja. So how do you kind of forecast the Lakers going into the series? How do you think they should play it, and kind of how do you think they actually end up executing that?
It's really tough. And I've been going over this today, looking at everything, trying to figure out how do you handle this? Because like ideally, if let's say like you go with, and this is not just a Frank Vogel thing, but Frank Vogel is the guy Lakers fans remember for doing this. But you blitz the ball handler, right? So if you do that, the Lakers did it to James Harden in the playoffs. They did it to basically any ball handling guard. They did it to Jimmy Butler a little bit as well in the finals. And they would send two at him. And then when that initial pass would come, they would trust that their remaining three players could play 3-on-4 for at least, say, 5, 6, 7 seconds and do enough to disrupt the other team. And in particular, force the ball into the hands of players who are not used to making decisions. Even when they've got the ball and they're in a 4-on-3 situation, they have to make the correct decision, whether to pass, dribble, shoot, whatever, and have players making that decision who are not used to doing that. And the Lakers, when they won the championship, did a great job of doing it. So I could see them going that route again. Try to blitz Ja. You got to worry about him splitting a double team. But then the problem becomes, this is where it gets tricky. How do you make sure that the ball winds up in the hands of Dylan Brooks, who's a 31, 32% three-point shooter, and not Luke Kennard, not Desmond Main, not Jaren Jackson Jr., who are all much better. That's the challenge with the Grizzlies lineup now without Steven Adams on the floor. You've got so much shooting out there. It's going to be tough because Ja is either, if Ja splits the double, then you're in a lot of trouble. But if you blitz him and he makes the right pass and you're giving up open threes to Luke Kennard or open threes to Desmond Bain, that's going to hurt. The Grizzlies have a lot of ways to hurt you offensively. And I think it's going to come down to this. Can Jared Vanderbilt defend John Morant?
Yeah.
And that's a big ask for a guy who's at his best. And I think this is where his impact is typically felt. Like last night, we saw defending Anthony Edwards. Defending 2 through 4 is where Jared Vanderbilt's going to be at his best.
Right.
If he can defend Ja at least competently, which is a very difficult thing to ask him to do, to defend a point guard. But if he can do that, that opens up a lot of things. Otherwise, you got to start throwing in some double teams, all kinds of different stuff. You got to figure out, well, we can't really play drop coverage against John Morant. So then what do you do? Like, there's a lot of ways for the Grizzlies to counter whatever defense the Lakers throw at them. And stopping Ja is only part of it, because if you do stop Ja, that might just mean the ball is finding an open Luke Kennard. And we've seen when he was a Clipper, he's burned the Lakers a number of times.
Yeah.
It's going to be very, very tricky. And there's going to be a lot of adjustments to those adjustments. I don't envy Darvin Ham and the coaching staff for the puzzle that they have to solve here. Absolutely.
Yeah. I think the blueprint is probably, I mean, Ja had a very good series last year, but I think a lot of people remember Gary Payton did a very good job. But I have confidence in Vando. I think he can kind of contain him to the point where he'll be able to hold his own. The other thing, I think a concern that people have is the depth at the front court. So obviously, like we're saying, pick and rolls, AD will be involved in most of them, if not all of them. So how do you kind of see that playing out, where if AD were to get in foul trouble in one of these games, or if he needs a sub, whatever, where do you see us going from there?
Given the 3-point shooting of the Grizzlies, I would imagine it's probably going to be Wenyen because of the options at the center position. You're looking at Wenyen, you're looking at Mo Bamba, you're looking at now Tristan Thompson, who hasn't played yet for the team. Which player has the best chance of getting out and defending the 3-point line in that type of scenario? It's Wenyen Gabriel. He's going to be the quickest, but he's also the smallest of the group. He's 6'9", 205 pounds. So you do worry about John Morant getting and finishing over him, Jaren Jackson Jr. finishing over him. And that's where you're going to need frankly, Anthony Davis to stay out of foul trouble. He's probably going to be playing 40 minutes, 38 to 40 minutes every night. So can you get by with Wenyen at the center position for 5 minutes maybe, and LeBron fills in at 3 minutes, maybe Rui, something like that. But look, 5 minutes with your backup center in, if Wenyen can't contest at all in the mid-range or can't contest at all at the rim or something, and that can be all it takes for you to lose a game in the playoffs and maybe lose a series. So that's going to be something to keep an eye on for sure as well. Can Wenyen stay on the floor? Because he is your best bet to get out, I think, and cover the 3-point line as well, which is going to be a concern against the Grizzlies.
Yeah, he definitely makes the most sense. Wenyen Gabriel, friend of the Swider Show, he's on a couple of weeks ago. It was great too. But you mentioned rest, basically AD having to play 40 minutes. LeBron will be around there too. And I think last night you saw there was definitely some fatigue towards the end of the game. There's some sloppiness, some turnovers that we're really not accustomed to seeing from especially LeBron. But it's understandable. Trevor, he's in year 20. He's been in the league since I was 3 years old. So, but right before we logged on here, the schedule did come out, and particularly the first 3 games, there's two rest days in between. Do you view that as actually very, very important, or a little bit overrated? And how much more important do you see that as for the Lakers as opposed to other teams in the playoffs?
No, I think it's extremely important. You look at, ideally they would have got the 6th seed and then they would have even more time off. But this team has spent probably 4 of the last 5 games where people were concerned about, how much of what we're seeing is disinterest, is just they're pretty much assured of a play-in spot. And they're not playing the other teams. They're playing teams who are resting players, so it's hard to get up for a game like that and everything. How much of what we were seeing in terms of the sloppiness, the lethargic nature, all of that is disinterest? Is just, hey, we don't have to push down on the gas pedal right now, so we're not going to. And how much of it was fatigue? And the hope was that it was a whole lot of the former and not a lot of the latter. I think we did see quite a bit of fatigue from the Lakers last night. So having 4 days off is critical. And then the schedule going forward of having a couple of days off between games instead of just one day off, that's also huge for the Lakers, because they need all the rest that they can possibly get. Shut it down, rest up as much as you can. They 100% need it. It's not going to be enough. They need like a month off to fully recharge, but they'll take every day, every hour that they can get to rest at this point.
Yeah, I think it's fascinating. See LeBron too. You could kind of tell last night he was like, if we win this game, we're in the next round. So from the jump, he was a lot more aggressive than I thought you usually see him. So it'll be interesting to see in game 1 if he's kind of takes the same approach. Yeah,
he did seem more aggressive, but then you also saw him at the end of the game, hands on his knees. He looked pretty gassed. That's not something you always see from LeBron, but the reality is he's 38. Like it's going to happen. So
exactly,
the more rest they can get, the better. And look, I don't know how the series, I imagine this series is going to be a battle, but if there's any way, if they can get up and somehow, some way, the best case scenario, finish it in like 5 games or something and get some more rest, because that fatigue is going to be a factor all the way throughout the playoffs. The more rest they can get, the better. They need as much as they possibly can, because they looked pretty exhausted last night. And unfortunately, I think the Wolves looked even more exhausted.
Yeah.
So that helped them out, but I'm not expecting that will be the case with Memphis.
Right. Yeah. They were very, very stagnant towards the end of the game, which I thought definitely benefited the Lakers. But I actually wanted to get your prediction, what you kind of think will happen in this first round series. Do you see, I'm assuming you're going to go with the Lakers W, as I am as well, and I'm sure most of the listeners, but how do you see it playing out?
Yeah, I'm going to stay optimistic, and I'm going to say the Lakers ultimately get the win. I think it's going to be a very difficult series. I think that there's going to be a lot of adjustments made on both sides, and the Lakers coaching staff is going to have to adjust to the adjustments, which is critical. In a playoff series, you're going to see a team a number of times, and they're going to do things to counter what you're doing, and you've got to counter those things, and back and forth you go. So there's going to be a lot of pressure on the Lakers coaching staff to make the correct decisions, push the right buttons in order to get them where they want to go. But this Lakers team, they've got the ability to play a heck of a lot better than they did last night, and a lot better than they have in the recent stretch. So I'm hopeful that we are going to see them turn it back up. And I'm going to say the Lakers get it done in 6. That's what I'm hoping to see
I
here.
agree
But
with you. Yeah.
it's not going to be easy. I'll tell you that. It is.
No.
We are going to be on the edge of our seats, I think, for most of
Yeah.
the series.
Absolutely. I think it'll be a very hard fought series, and the Grizzlies are no stranger to talking shit too. So we'll see how that
Yeah.
plays out. But um, just some big picture stuff here, and then we'll let you go. I know you only have a few more minutes left with this, but I think a lot of basketball fans will remember 2020, the bubble season, the whole rhetoric around. I think they started 40-8. They were pretty clearly the best team in the league before they shut down, and then obviously after the bubble they come back and win the championship. But I'm sure you'll remember all of the rhetoric around who the third guy is and who
Mhm.
is going to step up and who's going to be that one guy that they can rely on game to game outside of LeBron and AD. It ended up being Rondo that year, so I have written down Rondo candidates. So from your standpoint, Trevor, who do you think is one guy on the roster that kind of has to really step up and be the one that is relied upon as a third option night to night?
Oh, who can be playoff Rondo?
Yeah,
Those are
playoff Reeves, playoff
yeah,
D'Lo. I don't know.
that's the guy that I've been asked this question a number of times on recent radio shows and things like that. And I think that my answer has been Austin Reeves, which sounds crazy. Like if you told me this, what, a year and a half ago, I would say that's insane. He's an
Yeah,
undrafted free agent. I mean, he didn't get picked in the first round or the second. Now he had the option to get picked in the second round, but still, like, undrafted player. And here he is. And I think he probably is your X factor, though. His ability to get to the free throw line, his high shooting percentage from three, those are going to be critical for the Lakers in this series. And what can he do defensively? His ability to chase around a guy like a Desmond Bane, a guy like Luke Kennard. What can he do there? So he is going to be extremely important here. But I think the true beauty of this Lakers team right now is that it's not going to be the same guy every single
right.
night. I think Austin more often than not will step up, but I think that D'Angelo Russell had a terrible game against the Wolves. It wouldn't shock me if very, very soon we see a bounce back 25
Yeah,
plus
he
point
can.
performance on him,
Right.
right? Like it could be any number of players on any given night, and that makes them extremely hard to game plan for. So I'm curious to see who else does step up, but I am looking at Austin as probably being the guy who most consistently steps up.
Yeah, I think since the All-Star break, most Lakers fans will agree with you. If you remove yourself from kind of the preconceived notions there of undrafted and he wasn't even, I mean, he worked his way into the rotation last year, but I don't think coming into this year people would have looked at him as the third option on the team. He's
Mhm.
been about 20 a game, insane efficiency since the deadline. So yeah, I'd agree with you there. That's the other positive too, like you said. Some guys might have struggled last night, but they could definitely break out of it in big games to come. My final question, just big picture, where do you see what is your prediction for this playoff push? And I think last time you were on, we asked what success might be
Mhm.
for this Lakers season. I think if you asked anyone around Halloween time when they were 2-10, they would have said if if we're the seventh seed, then we could get swept. It's still a success. But with the position they're in now, I think they have kind of a favorable matchup. How do you see the next couple of weeks going for the Lakers?
Yeah, I mean, I think their ceiling now, I mean, could be a championship. Like I wouldn't call them the favorite. I would certainly pick the
100%.
field
Yeah.
over the Lakers, but I think that ceiling is now there. Whereas prior to the trade deadline, I don't think that ceiling was there at all. In terms of what is success, I asked this question to a lot of Lakers fans. I put out a poll and everything, and I had all varieties. Some people saying, nope, it's a championship or bust. That's the only thing that means success to this franchise. I had other people saying it was a success the moment the trade deadline deals got done,
Right.
because it's given them so much hope for the future, for next season and beyond with the moves that they made. So personally, I think success for this team is going to be just proving beyond a shadow of a doubt that this is the roster that you want to stick with in the offseason. And to me, that
Absolutely.
means making a strong push at least into the second round, and then you go from there. It's not going to be easy, but I think you get into the second round and you look really good. It would be all but impossible for the front office to come back and say, well, we're not going to pay into the tax for this team, or maybe let's go back to that 3-star model or something like that. I think personally they've already cleared the bar and showed that this is the team and should be the team moving forward. But you get into the second round, you look good in the postseason. I think that's just going to cement that moving forward, that this is the new way of the NBA, 2 stars and depth, and this needs to be the roster build moving forward.
Yeah, I completely agree with all your points there. I think yeah, it's very well said. And hopefully moving forward, we'll see Cole Swider on the court a little bit more. But
That's right. That's right.
Trevor,
That's right.
Trevor, thank you so much. You can find him, Lakers Nation, fellow Blue Wire podcast. doing pre and post game shows on Twitter. Very active in the chat. So if you're in the post game shows, make sure you ask him some questions. I'll read on the show. And yeah, thank you so much, Trevor, for taking the time out, and go Lakers as always.
That's right. No problem. Thank you so much for having me. And yeah, let's go. Postseason basketball. Lakers back where they belong in the playoffs. Let's see if they can make some noise.
Absolutely. Thank you, Trevor.
Thanks.